32nd pick to the Carolina Panthers. With the 32nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Edgar.
In the 2024 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Jonathan Brooks, running back, Texas. Second pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Trevin Wallace.
What's going on? What's up, Doug Nation? We have a great night in store for you guys, man. Like we just showed a couple of clips from the beginning of the offseason. Dan Morgan, Dave Canales have been knocking it out the park with priority free agents. Now the draft has been completed. Rookie Minicamp starts this Friday. Now we're about to start having live action with the Carolina Panthers, man. We have two great special guests joining us tonight, and we will have a panel opening as well tonight. We have our guy Edgar from Twitter or X as people call it, and we have our guy Ricky joining us here later, man. But I'm gonna bring my guy Edgar on so he can definitely introduce himself, tell everybody a little bit about himself. We're gonna jump right into it. What's going on, Edgar?
What's up, Doug? Man, that intro's got me hyped. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk Panthers ball and off-season stuff with fans and other people that are in the group right now. And so, like, for me, with the draft done and completed, like we got a little lull, but definitely, hype and expectations are sky high right now, and I'm very excited.
Yes, sir. So with the expectations, how are you feeling overall right now with the season, getting closer and closer? We get the schedule next week. How are you actually feeling as a whole now with it getting closer to training camp and everything?
I mean, it's a lot of hope. I mean, I think for me, the biggest like change for me is going to be Dave Canales. So the new head coach, if you look at the roster, I know there's a lot of changes and movements, but if you look at like the skeleton of the roster, it hasn't changed that much. The defense hasn't, we've added a Jadeveon Clowney, you've added an A'Shawn Robinson, you lost to Frankie Louvi, lost to Brian Burns, so maybe the defense is like a wash. On offense, you added Deontay Johnson, you drafted Xavier Legette, right? And so in general, the bones of the team is about the same, but the biggest change that you're making is you're adding a quarterback guru, a guy who says, not who says, but like lives out this high energy philosophy. And then he has a track record of being with Geno Smith and resurrecting his career. Baker Mayfield last year resurrecting his career. So Bryce Young, is he the next person that is on, the next project for Dave Canales? And so for me, that's the biggest X factor of this whole season is, does Dave Canales, is he really this whiz kid? He's not even a kid. He's in his 40s, but is he the kind of guy that's going to transform this team, transform Bryce Young to the guy that we know he is? Because if it's exactly the same as last year, it's going to be another long season.
Correct. All right, we got our first super sticker. I appreciate my guy Red Sworn said, yo, what's good? C-Dougie, everybody in the chat. Like I said, we have a agenda, and we already have I've already shared the slides with Edgar again. What we're going to talk about is all the pieces are set, the rebirth of the Carolina Panthers. Let me go ahead and go to our first slide. Let me hide this comment real quick. And basically, it's the state of the roster. How does this roster, what would you give Dan Morgan grade, or how do you feel the roster as a whole? And we're just going to jump right into it, man. Like I said, the roster is definitely set. There may be a couple pieces here and there that we might add. I do know we have priority in the waiver wire with the number one option. And if you want to call it the number one pick, we definitely can call it that. But how the breakdown we're going to do is we're going to break down the offense, the defense. We'll slightly talk about special teams. Then we'll give our grades on Dan Morgan as a whole from free agency into the draft, remaining holes, and then rookie minicamp storylines. So, Edgar, you ready to get into it, my guy?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. So our first slide, we have here the offensive overhaul. Basically, Carolina knew that they had to come in and address the offensive line and bring in new weapons as well. We brought in Robert Hunt on day one of free agency. Then you brought in Damian Lewis. You got Yash Neatman out of Green Bay. You drafted Jonathan Brooks. Then you brought in Deontay Johnson via trade. David Moore is a free agent. Xavier Legette, rookie. Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent. And Javonte Sanders, another rookie in the draft. Give me 1 second. Let me read this real quick. Shout out my co-host, my guy, Uncle Quan, my guy Dub, been doing crazy work. Y'all show that love. Definitely appreciate it. That's my co-host right there over at the Panthers Experience with Uncle Quan. Definitely appreciate him showing that love tonight, man. So, Edgar, as you can see, we see that Dan Morgan knew exactly what he needed to do and what he needed to bring into this offense underneath Dave Canales with the additions that we already brought in. Again, as you see, the title I put is the offensive overhaul. How did you feel, or how are you feeling about the offense as a whole right now? If you say the Carolina Panthers have a game next Sunday, how are you feeling right now?
I mean, I'm feeling good. I mean, I know it's the offseason, so we're our hope is high, right? But I think one thing I appreciate about Dan Morgan is that being a former player, being a very honest, transparent person, he said exactly what he was set out to do this offseason. He was saying, like, this is what I'm going to do. And then he did it. And then he like exceeded expectations. So what do I mean by that? One, he said he wanted to be like, he wanted dogs, right? And so what do you mean by dogs? Like competitors, leaders, people that are like live, breathe, eat football, right? And so who did you spend the most money on this offseason? And it starts right up the middle.
Yep.
Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, right? And so like, you know, like in life, right? You prioritize where you spend your money, and that's where they spent their money. And so part of it is like the offensive line was terrible last year. Part of it is they had 7 left guards and 8 right guards last year. And so I don't think any quarterback can survive when you have such a rotation in your offensive line, let alone someone who is a rookie in the league and also needs like some extra time to buy it in the pocket. And so I think that those two open up the rest of the position groups. Mm-hmm. And I also think that he said in his pressers, he was saying like, oh, I want some playmakers. And so he got, you know, Xavier Legette, he got Deontay Johnson, he got Jonathan Brooks. And so people who make plays, I mean, last year they did their best, but like there was no explosive plays. The one explosive play I could think of was DJ Chark, and then he fumbled it out of the end zone. But there wasn't any explosive, like long distance plays. I felt like Bryce Young last year, like every play was like 5 yards, 10 yards, another 5 yards, 10 yards. They worked so hard. And then remember in the Tampa Bay game, in the very next drive, Mike Evans takes a long touchdown, and then the Panthers have to do it all over again, like brick by brick by brick. And so I appreciate that Dan Morgan has a philosophy. It aligns with Dave Canales'. And so you said, how am I feeling if the Panthers played a game? Like, I feel confident that they have a philosophy. They have a way that they think they know how to win games, and they're going to execute that. Whether that translates to wins, like, I'm very excited. I hope it translates to wins. But I know that, like, at least they have that. They know exactly what their plan is and how they plan to execute it.
Yes, sir. Shout out to, real quick, I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. Shout out to Donna B. She said Panther Nation with a $5 super chat. Definitely appreciate that. And we also got another one from Nick Triste. I appreciate you pulling up, Nick. He said, hit those lights on the way in. Dougie Fresh, what's up? What's up, my guy, Nick? For me, I love it. I really think Dave Canales and Dan Morgan are aligned. That's the one thing that you want. You want an alignment. You want your GM and you want your head coach not butting heads where we've had that with Scott Fitterer, or you had that with Matt Rule. You're actually aligned. And that's one thing that they said starting out, that they wanted to be aligned. They wanted to be on one accord, and no coaches has a different agenda than what they're bringing in. So that's one thing that I think Dan Morgan being here with Scott Fitterer, being in the organization, he knew what we needed to address. He knew that we didn't have great offensive line in the middle. When you have a short quarterback, you need premium guards. You need a good center. I know how everybody feels about Austin Corbett. We're going to get into that as well when we talk about offensive starters right now. But if you look at the weapons where you can give a person a pass and they can take a yak play for 20 yards. I understand everybody wants Bryce to have that big arm, but whenever you look at it where he has weapons where he just has to do one of the 11, you have that. And with the weapons of a Deontay Johnson coming in along with Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo going into his second year, you get a Xavier Leggett, then you get a Jonathan Coker who was supposed to be drafted. He has weapons now. And we're going to get into how much pressure is really on Bryce as well. But before we go further, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our next slide, the offensive starters. If you look right here, left tackle, I know how people feel about it. You got Ike Ekwonu. Then at left guard, you have Damian Lewis. Center will be Austin Corbett. Right guard would be Robert Hunt. Right tackle will be Taylor Moton. Then for the starting running back as of right now, it's Chuba Hubbard. Your wide receivers will be Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, and then Xavier Leggett with Tommy Tremble circled in right now as starting tight end. We did put an asterisk with Jonathan Brooks, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Mingo, TMJ, and Javonte Sanders. With this offense right now, this is a total different offense. Outside of your offensive line, when you have Ike Ekwonu and Austin Corbett and Taylor Moton, again, that's where you spent that $150 million on those two guards. Then you went and got Deontay Johnson as a wide receiver, and then you traded up in the first round to go get Xavier Leggett. And then if you look at the reserves that we possibly have in the Jonathan Brooks and Javonte Sanders, Carolina's offense looks totally different on paper right now based off of what it did last year. How are you feeling about, the offense right now? Again, I know this is on paper, and people hate the word on paper because we thought on paper we were going to look good last year. But if you look at it right now, how are you feeling about the offense as a whole, Edgar? Is it good? Is it room of improvement? How are you actually feeling?
Yeah, man. I mean, I like it. I mean, one of the things that I appreciate about this offense is that exactly how they want to win the game. They want to run the ball. Like that's primo number one target, right? And so he said Dave Canales said he was going to be stubborn about running the ball. Maybe the run's not working, but he's still going to keep trying. He's still going to keep trying. So this roster, this offensive segment of the roster is built specifically to win the run game. And so we got guys who have experience in Dave Canales' run game. So I feel like, when you get a new coaching staff, just think about it last year when we had Frank Reich. It's there's going to be an adjustment period. People don't know Frank Reich. Bryce Young is still adjusting to the league. But this is the first time we're okay, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt come from a scheme that are very familiar with, that's very similar to Dave Canales', right? You have a guy, there's other guys that they brought onto the team who they've drafted that align exactly the pieces that were Dave Canales wants to win. And so I don't know if you caught that clip from CJ Stroud when he was analyzing the Panthers pick of Xavier Leggett. And Mike Renner, one of the draft analysts, is I give this a C. He's in my 90s. And CJ Stroud's no, man, you got to get specific roles to open up everybody else. And so Xavier Leggett is going to be that deep threat, the vertical threat. They didn't have that last year. And so that makes things easier for Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. Last year, if for those who watched the tape, that Bryce Young, when he was ready to throw, nobody was open. And so who'd they get? One of the best separators in the league in Deontay Johnson. And so I love the pieces they put together, a strong running game. And when Bryce is ready to throw, you have complementary pieces in Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, and Xavier Leggett that ideally would open it up. And I also want to say that maybe next year, this isn't the number one offense in the league, but we don't need the number one offense in the league. What they need is just to win games. And so I think they put pieces together that would put them in a position to win games.
I totally agree with you on that. Let me read Nick Tri-State's super chat. I appreciate that, Nick. He said, in my opinion, Sanders will be starting tight end by week 6. Only thing he has to work on is blocking. Again, he doesn't really have any competition in Tommy Tremble. I know Tommy Tremble was not able to get the necessary touches that he was supposed to get underneath his coaching staff. Then if you look at it, Ian Thomas has not shown the promise that he was supposed to show after Greg Olsen. So again, on What's Up, Doug, we talked about Dan Morgan made a draft for the future of the Carolina Panthers offense. And again, if you look at the Jonathan Brooks pickup, you look at the Xavier Leggett draft pick, and then you look at the Jatavion Sanders, those are future Panthers that you're setting foundational bricks for the future. Just look what they did with Derrick Brown, the DB. Yes, they let Brian Burns go, but they made sure they had a foundational piece there whenever you bring in new talent around. So for me, I agree with that, Nick. I definitely agree with that pick, man. Did you have anything on that, Edgar?
No, I agree, but I also wouldn't sleep on Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble had some impressive catches last year. He had some touchdowns that I was impressed with last year, and so if anyone could unlock Tommy Tremble, like I think Dave Canales, like maybe he'll cook something up for him too.
Yeah. So I already know everybody get a lot about this next slide. So you ready to go ahead and talk about it? You know, this is the talk that everybody's gonna ask. How much pressure is on Bryce Young? Let me hide this comment. There's no more excuses. Edgar and I have both said, and I know a lot of people are torn in the fan base on Bryce Young. Again, how much pressure is on Bryce Young going into year 2? And I know there's going to be a lot of conversation in the chat. So I'm going to let you go ahead and open it up, Edgar, and I'm going to follow up with you. So, Edgar, how much pressure is on Bryce Young right now?
Yeah, it was a hot topic on Twitter about is this a make or break season for Bryce Young? I think the real expectations are like he has to be better than like in terms of like the pressure. There's immense pressure for Bryce Young to be better than last year. Is there pressure for Bryce Young to be a top 10 quarterback? I don't think so. Like if he improves over last year, I think fans will be fine. The team will be fine. We just need to see upward trajectory. But if we have the same issues as last year, you know, getting sacked so many times, missing deep throws. He had that issue last year. I think we're going to in for a long season and we're going to be wondering, hey, should we draft another quarterback? But like, I think the expectation, at least for me, or I think where fans should be, is like, are you better than last year? Because last year was one of the worst rookie performances of any QB of all time. And so if we have a repeat of that, like that's a lot of pressure in terms of like going into the next offseason of whether or not the GM and the front office should get another QB. But other than that, I feel like, what kind of pressure is there? Like you're the worst team in the league. You can't be worse than last year. So at some level, you have no pressure on you.
All right, let me go ahead and bring your buddy on. Let me welcome to the stage, Mr. Ricky himself, Reigns. How you doing, Ricky?
What's up, man? How you doing? Edgar, what's up, buddy? How are you, man?
Hey, Ricky.
All right, go ahead, introduce yourself. We're talking about Bryce Young, and I'll pull the slide back up for you, Ricky. But go ahead, introduce yourself, man.
Oh, okay. Ricky Reigns. I am the host of the BoboddyShow and Edgar Salmingo Jr.'s biggest fan. I'm honored that you asked me to come on tonight, man. I appreciate always getting to chop it up and talk Panthers ball. A contributor for Cat Crave as well, so you can check out some of my work over there. And honestly, man, I'm just a Panthers fan at heart.
Yes, sir. So real quick, Ricky, let me show you the slide. We just talked about the offense as a whole. We just talked about the offense. The starters. You can give your thoughts on that, but I'm gonna pull the slide back up. How much pressure is on Bryce Young? No more excuses. Again, you can talk about the offense as a whole, and then you can also talk about how much pressure you think is on Bryce Young right now.
Yeah. So as far as pressure individually on Bryce, I don't know that there is a ton of pressure. I think what he has on him is that he's had an improved supporting cast, so the results should also improve. The production should improve. I think that the only pressure comes from fans that already have a preconceived notion of what they think Bryce Young is based off of either last year or based off of the pre-draft process coming in to the draft period when he was selected first overall. I caught the very tail end of the point that Edgar was making, and it was that we were the worst team in the league, right? We were 2-15. So what kind of realistic pressure should there be? I mean, if you finish 4-13, you had a better year than you did, right? Now there's going to need to be individual step ups from Bryce, from the offensive line, from the supporting cast, from the receivers, the running backs, even. But for Bryce, man, look, I just want to see progress. Now that's not to say though that he's like absolved from poor play. If he plays poorly next year, you don't have to throw your Captain Save a Quarterback cape on and come in here and say, oh, but man, he's such a nice dude and we drafted him first overall. You can give legitimate criticisms on Bryce Young and his game. But I think that a lot of the things that were pointed towards him last season were a product of the collective.
Yeah, and what you mean by collective, I'm gonna
Frank Reich and Thomas Brown and
okay,
and Josh
okay.
McCown and
Look, I was gonna throw some stuff at you, and she like, nah,
Yeah.
Doug, I'm not talking about that. So, what you saying that people say, oh, but Bryce didn't throw the ball to he had plenty of time, or Bryce, didn't throw. He only threw the ball 2 yards down the field, 4 yards down the field. People have to
Right.
understand that was the scheme. And then when you
Sure,
have
yeah.
most of your pressure coming from both guard positions and their center, what can
Yeah.
he do? Again, he's already short, and that does not help him. But when you look at it, he also had to rush throws because most of the pressure was coming right in his face. I understand Icky gave double-digit sacks up. I'm hoping Icky is able to have a bounce-back year underneath a new regime. And his coach is actually coaching him up and not running to the principal's office. But when you look at it, the weapons that he had, one thing I need people to understand, we brought in people, but we probably didn't have the right fit scheme players to actually help Bryce Young in his first year. And one thing that my co-host Quan always says, Doug, he's going to be tied to the hip with CJ Stroud. It did not help that CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and almost went into Baltimore and won that game.
Yeah, it's that like polar difference, right? Like they're just on such far ends of the spectrum as far as their production and their team record and what they did last year. You bring up a point about his height, and it's true, man. Like it's not breaking news. He's a shorter quarterback, right? But if you speak to anybody that either evaluates or teaches the quarterback position specifically, or even just is a smart football mind and NFL oriented person, you don't throw over 6'5" linemen. You don't throw over the offensive line. There's throwing windows. You're throwing in windows that are in between the players. So his height isn't some detriment to his ability to play that position at a high level. What you made a good point on, though, is that interior pass rush does matter more for a shorter in stature quarterback. And that's why you saw the emphasis from teams like the New Orleans Saints during Drew Brees' tenure, Russell Wilson in Seattle. Kyler Murray, even to an extent. Now, Kyler's a much more athletic, get out of the pocket. That's where he wants to play. He's a little bit more of a scrambler than where Bryce Young is a terrific pocket passer. But you look at his numbers of throwing across the middle of the field, man. If his height was a detriment, he wouldn't have had the success that he had. He needs time in the pocket, and he needs guys that can separate. But the scheme also has to be friendly to the personnel that you have on the team. And I think that we should feel relatively solid about the prospect of Dave Canales and Brad Isaac doing that.
All right, hold on. We got another super chat. Again, if you do want to send a super chat, we will read them. If you have a question for Edgar or Ricky, definitely let us know as well. Bryce is going to shut up all the haters this year. Stop the Bryce hate. Hey, you don't got it over here. You don't got it over here. And I mean, Fednom, and I appreciate that super chat, Fednom. You know what I said. If Bryce does wet the bed or he does not come produce, I'll be one of the first to come out and I will give back money so y'all can just talk crazy to me because I really think people are not understanding the toll that was on Bryce. He was a rookie. Yes, I understand. We traded up. We all thought he was going to be the savior. People thought that we were a quarterback away. Yes, but I'm saying this year, Bryce has no excuses. That's the reason why this right here was I wanted to talk about this. No more excuses. How much pressure is on Bryce Young? And again, he has everything at his disposal. They built an offensive line for him. Then they went and got him weapons. And they also made sure that he only has to be one of 11. And I love that quote that Dave Canales said. Bryce, we don't need you to do everything by yourself. Just do your job and we'll be fine. And I think Bryce is more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you guys got into it prior to me getting on, but the one thing that I will say about like he has everything at his disposal, I would take a tiny pause there because what he still has at his disposal, we don't know about Icky, right? Like you guys were talking about Icky and the sacks that he gave up. The left tackle position is still a premier position, and the center position is now Austin Corbett. And I know how highly they feel about Austin, and I know that he's a very intelligent guy, but he's coming off of significant injuries, and he's never played the position in meaningful snaps. His supporting cast, he still has Adam Thielen, who is an older player who has his physical limitations. And the next guy is Deontay Johnson that comes to mind. And Deontay is a clear upgrade. That is where we should all feel very optimistic about that relationship of a natural separating wide receiver that can create his own rhythm in his own areas for Bryce Young to take advantage of. But
Correct.
after that, man, it's on the development of Jonathan Mingo, and it's on the impact of a rookie in Xavier Legette, who I like a lot, but it's still a rookie wide receiver, man. And then it's a rookie tight end in Jatavian Sanders, or it's the same tight end room that you had last year. So while
Correct.
he does have things at his disposal, his supporting cast, and Edgar made a post, I believe it was today, where he showed these wide receivers that these second-year quarterbacks are coming into, and they're top 3 receivers that they're playing with. Bryce is still behind the 8 ball in that regard, in my personal opinion. You look at that depth that these other teams have, man, they're not relying on a rookie and a 34, 35-year-old journeyman, or, not journeyman, but a slot receiver, physically limited guy to come in. They're not relying on that, man. They've got Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, right? They've got DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. Yeah, man. I mean, they've got a lot of quality players that are proven commodity players, and we've got a lot of, if they do what they can do, they'll be good players. But that's an if. It starts that sentence, right?
Go ahead, Edgar. Let me read this question, Edgar. I'm going to open it up to you. I appreciate the question from Mark Burtz. He said, look, I'm not hoping he does, but if Bryce proves to be straight bust, late season Fields could be available to trade and sign. Would y'all look to Quinn or Shador for the draft?
I mean, he has to look really bad. I mean, remember, like, this front office gave up a lot to get Bryce Young. Dave Canales came here for Bryce Young, so a lot has to go wrong to go that direction. I've never ruled anything out because it's the NFL and crazy things will always happen. And I was just going to piggyback onto what Ricky said. I was just counting the quarterbacks from last year. If talking about the quarterbacks from this year, Caleb Williams has Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze, and so like every young QB has a stacked weapon room, right? Or stacked weapons, and Bryce Young it's an improvement over last year, but when you compare it against other people's rooms, you're like, okay, like we're gonna have to rely on Bryce Young to elevate his players versus the other way around.
That's right. And I think that he got the players that he can elevate this year, right? That's the scheme difference. I think he can elevate those players.
Yes, sir. Appreciate Nick sent us another super chat. He said Icky should have been right tackle last year. Okay.
Well, it always sounds a lot easier, and I appreciate like the creative solutions. You know what I mean? Like, look, we don't want Icky, who was a 6th overall pick, to just go for nothing. So that's where a lot of the conversation was. Well, look, kick him inside. Our guard play was atrocious last season, and Icky, when he was drafted, was said to have positional versatility to play inside or outside. But the footwork and the speed and the approach, right? The understanding and the being able to counter attacks and keep his balance. Those problems all exist no matter where he is along the line. That's a development thing and a comfortable thing in a scheme working for him. And maybe there's something to be said about how they used chip protections and added help for him in his rookie season. And maybe there's a reason that they drafted Jonathan Brooks, who's the best pass protector in the class. Maybe they have plans to kind of instill a little bit more of that if Icky struggles again. It's all stuff that we're going to have to find out during the season, right? But they're all legitimate questions.
I do think Icky looked best 2 years ago under Steve Wilkes and that offense and what it looked like. And so I wouldn't put it past Dave Canales because this is everything he's saying. Obviously, it depends on what his actions, what actions he shows. But I feel like in a quicker offense, because Dave Canales says he wants Bryce Young to get the ball out very quickly, and he wants to be very run heavy. Like, those are playing right into Icky's strengths. And so I don't want to say like, oh, Icky's terrible. He has no salvageable talents. Like, he has talents. It just didn't match up to what the offense was putting out there last year. And then everybody looked bad last year in the offense. So like, why blame just Icky?
100%. And it was the second year, right? Like these guys are left tackles, man, they don't always come in and dominate like right away. I mean, you saw, I forget who Andrew Thomas for the New York Giants struggled, man. They were ready to cut bait with him. And then he put up one of the best pass protection scores last year and towards the tail end of the other season. It'll come, man. Like, you got to have a little patience. And that's what I would say about the Bryce thing. I wouldn't look at trading for Fields or another player, and I wouldn't go ahead and plan on drafting a quarterback next year. This is now his first year again in an offensive system with different playmakers at his disposal. I think if he shows progress at all, I think that you're going to look at it and say, look, getting a rookie receiver as his top main target now, that buys a little bit of time as well, in my opinion, as does the building chemistry and rapport with his coaches.
Yes, sir. So before we switch over, if you are just now joining us, we have the pleasure of having two brilliant minds, Edgar and Ricky, joining us tonight. We are talking about the state of the roster for the Carolina Panthers with Rookie Minicamp starting on Friday. We just want to talk about the roster. Bring on a panel for tonight. I know once Edgar drops off, we will be dropping the link so more people can join Ricky and myself. If you are new to the channel, definitely hit the like button for us. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you do have a question for anybody on the panel, drop it in the chat, either via super chat or you can just ask the question. It does not matter. We just hope everybody's enjoying the show. So, fellas, as we go now, we're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball. Are these guys Evero's guys, or are they scheme fit? And the title for this is defensive adjustments. One player that we brought in, I know everybody's happy about, is Jadeveon Clowney, hometown kid out of South Carolina. Then you bring in DJ Wanham, Kayvon Chasen. You drafted rookie Trevin Wallace. You drafted another linebacker in Michael Barton. I'm sorry, Ashawn Robinson, Jaden Cromedy, another rookie, Dan Jackson, Cha Smith-Wade, another rookie, and Jordan Fuller. So with the defensive adjustments, fellas, tell me what you guys think. Is it Evero's guys? Is the scheme fit? A mixture of both? How are you guys feeling about the defense adjustments that we brought in with the players that we did lose?
No, I think it's both. I think it's a trending towards both his guys and a scheme fit. When I looked at all the different free agents and rookies they brought in, well, let's start with the free agents, right? They all had experience with Evero and Evero's system, with the exception of Clowney, right? The ones that are slotted to be starters. They're all captains. So Clowney, Ashawn Robinson, Jordan Fuller, like these are like Josie Jewell, like these are leaders. These are like leaders of men. And so like they know the scheme and they fit Dan Morgan's like identity. And so like I think it's a great mix of what you want to put in. Yeah, like if you looked at like the top free agents, like they didn't get the best defensive player. They lost to Brian Burns, they lost to Frankie Louvu. But if you're gonna lose them and you need to replace them with like something that fits together, like this is like a group that I think like fits like a glove to like what Evero needs in his system. I know I'm still worried about, and some fans are still worried about like what does CB2 look like, especially if JC Horn goes down. But in the meantime, or assuming positive outcomes here, like it looks like on paper, like, okay, it looks kind of soft, but like if you really look at the scheme and their experience with Ejiro Evero, you're like, man, they put together like the exact defense that Evero needs to like be very, very, very effective on the defensive side, especially stopping the run.
Correct. And I think that's what they definitely did. They brought in people that were run stoppers. And that's one thing we were very atrocious in. Even if you had a number 4 defense, we were terrible with stopping the run. But let me read Nick. I appreciate that $5 super chat again, Nick. He said, but Icky is better as a run blocker than that's utter fact. Naturally, you want your right tackle as your run blocker. He's super efficient as that bit Moeller right tackle. So why do you think we went and got Robert Hunt? That's exactly the reason why we went and got Robert Hunt, to be your Moeller, to run right behind your right tackle. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me, I know Edgar is good with stats, and I know Ricky's right behind him. Robert Hunt had the number 1 run grade for guards last year. Am I correct?
That I don't.
On PFF, you mean?
On PFF, wasn't it a 90.1 grade, if I'm not mistaken?
It was at least a top 5 for the position, I believe. Yeah.
Well, that's the reason why you go get a person like Robert Hunt when your coach says that he wants to be stubborn and run the ball a lot. And that's the reason why you fill that hole with the Damian Lewis and with a proven right guard in Robert Hunt. But back to the defense. Oh, go ahead, Ricky.
No. And I just to talk about Nick's question there again. I do understand what he means with the right tackle and the mauler, because historically and classically, that's the training of thought, right? But there's also nothing wrong with having a left tackle that's extremely good at run blocking as well, right? Especially if you have a coach that wants to be a stubborn run first offense. But you also can't just have a good run blocker on the right side and always run to that strength or always run to that strong side, right? You got to have the duality of being able to do everything and staying multiple and execute from either side of the field to keep a defense honest. But the pass protection on the right side is also becoming a huge thing. The team's premier edge rushers aren't just lining up over that left tackle anymore and pinning their ears back and coming. You've got interior pass rushers. You've got multiple pass rushers. You've got secondary, disguises that are blitzing from corner positions and safety alignments. So, I mean, there is an emphasis on all of it, but I do appreciate what he means about the right tackle. But Taylor Moton's not awful as a run blocker either, for what it's worth.
Correct. He's not. He's definitely not.
And I did want to add to Ricky's point about like not giving up on him. Like he's only 23 years old. Like to put that in perspective, Xavier Liggett is 23 years old. Like there's still a long ways to go for Icky to develop. And so like I wouldn't give up just yet. I know people are frustrated, but like let's let it play out. Let's let
hey,
it
man,
process.
I don't want to give up on 23-year-olds because nobody gave up on me as a 23-year-old, right? If they had, man, I wouldn't be able to sit here and have any of the conversations that I'm having today. So, like, you got to give a little bit of grace. I understand we're fans of a professional football team, but Edgar makes a terrific point. These are young dudes, man, that are learning the highest level of the sport.
Correct. So how do you feel? Either Edgar or Ricky, you guys can talk about the defense as a whole. Again, with the adjustments, I think Edgar was talking about it. How do you feel about it, Ricky? You know, are they Evero guys? Are they scheme guys? How are you feeling about it?
I think that's a 6 one way, half dozen the other kind of situation. Because I think that they are Evero's guys because they're also scheme guys. And this year, with putting such an emphasis on improving the offensive side of the ball because it was so glaringly bad last season, I think that they are banking some on Evero being able to get the most juice out of these lemons, right? And I'm not calling these bad players. I just mean of any fruit. You call them oranges, whatever your favorite citrus is. But I think that they are really relying on Evero to kind of work his magic. But if you look at Evero's history with defenses, he doesn't really emphasize having a dominant pass rushing edge player. His focus on edge is setting the edge and controlling the run game. So when you look at Jadeveon Clowney, and Edgar mentioned that was the one player that doesn't have a personal history type of deal or a direct connection with Evero, he does absolutely fit the mold, right, of what Evero likes. He also offers the upside of a pass rusher that I think is a little bit stronger than anybody else on the roster. But then you look at Josie Jewell, and you mentioned his leadership and all of those things. He also is a clear run defender. Like that is where he excels. So when they bring in Ashawn Robinson, Ashawn, I don't think is going to play the nose. I think he's still going to be a 3 or a 5 tech. But he's a huge guy, long arms that can contain that run game. He also offers a little bit more of a vertical pass rush than a Deshaun Williams of last year. Shy Tuttle is still a big question for me at that nose position. I still have some thoughts about them being able to solidify that in a different manner. But you get Shaq Thompson back. You can't underestimate the impact that will have. I agree entirely about cornerback too. It's been my concern is if we want to be fair about it, I hope that J.C. Horn plays 17 games. I hope he plays 18 or 19 because we get in the playoffs and win a game or two. But I hope that he plays 17 games and stays healthy for a season, but historically he hasn't. So let's go off of what he has done. And if we need a cornerback 1 for 8 games as well this season, that's where I get nervous because it's going to be Dane Jackson and DiCaprio Bootle. But if you read between the lines, man, this organization, whether it's the front office or the staff, they've got some faith in both of those guys. I really just truly believe that. I think that it was present in the fact that they went and got Cho Smith-Wade in the 5th round as opposed to attacking some of those other available players like a Cam Hart, like a TJ Tampa that profiles a little bit cleaner to a boundary corner. Now, Cho also played 94% of his snaps at Washington State on the outside. That's his natural position in college, but his physical measurements and limitations, maybe he's best suited as a nickel. Yeah. But in today's NFL, man, the nickel's a very important position as well. So they have a little bit of flexibility there with Troy Hill. Troy Hill has a little inside-out versatility as well. We saw him take over a couple of those responsibilities late last season. So I think that it's just one of those next man up. They're looking for quality of depth instead of having star power, and maybe they address that position because perhaps Evero isn't here next year. This may be his last rodeo in Carolina if he finally gets that head coach look that he's been auditioning for 3 years now. So if he's not here, they don't want to bring in a bunch of guys and sign them to 3-4 year contracts or use high draft capital that don't fit that system. So maybe they look at it with a little bit of foresight here, which would be a nice change for the Carolina Panthers. And they say, we want a guy that we draft with the intent of working with the coach that we're going to have for that duration.
Correct. So like I said, I definitely agree with it. Like I said, one thing that we were very bad at was stopping the run. And I'm actually glad we got some big bodies. I think Darren Brown was not able to have that person that can also take on a double team and actually help him as well. And when you bring in an Ashawn Robinson, we did get Clowney at the back end of free agency. You're not going to be able to double two players on that line. And I understand it is a 3-4, but what I mean by doubling is making sure one side has more attention than the other. And I think that's one thing that I do love about this defense. I do know Evero said he wants to be more aggressive in year 2 underneath him. And I think we definitely can be. And one thing that I think people were worried about is, we lost Brian Burns. But as a collective in that outside linebacker DN room, I'm not mad at it because, again, if Clowney can give you 7 sacks, Wanham gives you about 8. Then you got Chase, and that can give you about 5. Then you got Barno. People are still forgetting about Barno. People still are forgetting about DJ Johnson. I think this room as a whole is better than what we were in one person in Brian Burns. And
let me ask you, Doug, you think people are forgetting about Barno and DJ Johnson, or do you think they're trying to forget about Barno and DJ Johnson?
Both.
Look, and a lot of that comes down to development again. But I think that you got to temper the expectations for a guy like Barno because he was a 6th-round pick. You know what I mean? And if we look at he's not getting the opportunity to play, you got to win that opportunity, man. And last year it was a barren room at the outside linebacker edge rushing position. If he showed what he needed to in practice, I feel like he probably would have gotten more play time. I'm with you that I still am hopeful that physical talent ends up portraying out there on the field. Mm-hmm. But you want to talk about pressure or like the clock being on for players. I think DJ Johnson and Mari Barno are terrific examples of exactly that. I think that if they don't show up in a significant way this year, I don't see this team and this new staff, Canales and then the front office with Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis, I don't see them saying, well, let's keep going with it, man, and figure that out. Like, I think that they're going to be pretty swift with the hammer.
All right, real quick, because I know Edgar's on time. So I know, Edgar, answer this question for me, and then I'm going to flip to the starters. Do you think we sign Gilly? Gilly signs with another team, or he waits until training camp?
I mean, Joe Person reported yesterday that there's no movement, and if there is going to be movement, probably won't be until training camp. So I'm not anticipating anything. I also know, just looking at the numbers, like I know that Stephon Gilmore is probably going to ask for more than what they have space in the cap. And so even if all things, considered, like there was mutual agreement, mutual interest, there just isn't the space that the Panthers have that they can afford a Stephon Gilmore. And so I think if a playoff team is out there and willing to match his price tag, Stephon Gilmore will just sign with somebody else. But if like musical chairs and there's nobody left, and the Panthers are the best option, I could see Stephon Gilmore going there. But at least in the meantime, I think Stephon Gilmore has a price tag that he's looking for and waiting for a team. Maybe there's an injury in training camp or in the offseason. Maybe a team gets desperate, or maybe something happens and Stephon Gilmore is just waiting. Maybe maybe something happens and the Panthers like, okay, we need to up our game and like we'll increase what we're going to offer. But at least in the meantime, I don't anticipate anything happening anytime soon.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and pull up our defensive starters. At the end, we have Derrick Brown. At the other DM, we have Ashawn Robinson. Up in the middle, we have Shai Tuttle. For your outside linebackers, you have Jadeveon Clowney, DJ Wanham. Inside linebackers, you have Shat Thompson and Josie Jewell. Your corners will be J.C. Horn and Dan Jackson. And your safeties will be Jordan Fuller and Xavier Woods. Fellas, with this defense right now on paper, how are you feeling? Is there a weak spot? And is this defense better than last year's defense? If, again, I know I asked Edgar, Ricky, if we had a game on next Sunday, how confident are you in this defense? So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys, whoever wants to go first.
You go for it, Edgar.
I'd say I maybe it's just the optimist in me, but like if you have a defense that's led by Ejiro Evero and Dom Capers, like they're gonna figure it out. Is it enough defense? Is it gonna be the best defense in the league? I don't think so. But I do think that like they're gonna be in games because of the talent that they have on defense and the scheme that Evero and Dom Capers are bringing to this roster. And so again, it depends on what our expectations are. If you feel like they're gonna be the best in the league, then I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But I think it's definitely good enough to win a game. It's definitely good enough to win in the NFC South. And so I'm confident that like they're competitive enough to win some games.
Yeah, I think I don't feel like they're a top 10 unit based off of the on paper talent at each position, but on paper talent doesn't mean anything, to be completely fair. We all thought that collectively we improved our team so much last offseason, and then our coaching staff was so much better last offseason, and then we dropped an absolute egg for the entire regular season, right? So when I look at this and I say they have a plan and they are working with alignment, and that's the thing, right? That was the hot button word last year was alignment. If they are working together and they're doing it with a clear vision and intent of bringing in players to do certain things that they need and that they emphasize, yeah, I think that we can still anticipate this being a fairly decent bend, don't break kind of defense. And the major thing that can help the defense out is an improvement on offense. If that offense is better and this defense isn't having to hold up against the run because teams have a lead in every game, or if they're not hemorrhaging passing yards in the first couple of quarters, right? That all benefits the defense. So there's a lot that plays into it. I don't think it's a terrific unit. I think that our pass rush still worries me and our cornerback depth makes me concerned. But I think that I trust Evero and I trust Shaq Thompson being back and the difference that that can make. And I'm hoping for JC Horn to stay healthy.
Yes, sir. Edgar, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. I got Edgar has to hop out. We're about to drop the link. Edgar, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at on Twitter. And I definitely appreciate you pulling up. This is not the first. This is the first, but this is not the last time I will have you on this channel. So go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can find me at Panthers Analyst on Twitter or X. I've been writing for the Riot Report. So for those of you that are familiar with the Roaring Riot, they have website, newsletter, and so I've been helping out with their newsletters. I just want to thank you, Doug, for having me on. Obviously, I think highly of Ricky too, because I'm Ricky's #1 fan, so it's kind of awkward.
It is. Look at us.
So, but like, I appreciate you bringing me on, Doug, and then like, just to help, just to support you. Like, if the people that are out there on the chat showing love, thank you so much. But make sure, like, for all the people that are on here, make sure you like and you subscribe to this channel because Doug's moving on up. So before he forgets about you, and makes it big. Get on the ground floor. Get on the ground floor. Show some likes, show some love, comments. But like, good people, man, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir, Edgar. You take care. You take care of that baby, man. Right. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye, Doug. Bye,
Edgar.
Bye, everyone.
So we have dropped a link. Anybody is available to come up to the platform and talk with Ricky and myself. We got a couple more slides that we're going to talk about, and we're going to head out of here, man. So with the defense, though, I think the weakness is the corner position and definitely Shot Tuttle's position. I am an advocate for JC Horn. I want JC Horn. I said it today on Clay's channel. I listened to him to play 12 games this year. If he can give me 12 games, I'm ecstatic. That can still produce and show that he needed that fifth-year option, and he can definitely be the corner of the future corner for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Edgar. Edgar. Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, wishful thinking, right? If Edgar was still here. No, but so look, I agree with you, man, on JC Horn and the health being such a crucial thing. But it's really difficult, man, for me to put like a number on it. I just think that the tough part for me with JC, man, is that his injuries aren't concerning from a standpoint of like they're all soft tissue and that he has a history of a certain kind of injury popping up. He's had some really freak bad luck with some of these injuries, right?
Yes.
So I'm still taking that optimistic approach like you are, Doug, but with that little bit of cautious optimism because of the fact that even though they're not all tied to each other, the injuries, it's still frequent enough that you got to be a little bit nervous about it, right? But if he gives you 12 or 13 games, you're talking about an elite premier cornerback that is at a valuable position in today's NFL. So that can change the trajectory of our defense entirely.
Yes, sir. Let me bring up, we got a person that pulled up. What's going on, Nick? How are you doing tonight, man?
What up, fellas? How y'all doing? You can hear me good?
What's up, Nick?
Yes, sir. We can hear you great, man.
What's up, Ricky? What's up, Dougie?
What's going on,
doing,
my
man?
guy? Did you want to chime in or you had a comment?
Nah, I love Dougie, I'm sure you've heard me bang the JC Horn. I'm a huge JC Horn fan, and we are a completely different looking defense when he on the field every single time. It's so like you could just tell the defense plays better, and it's just overall better when he's out on that field.
Yeah, completely agree, man.
All right. So how do you feel, Nick? Who is how do you feel about the defense? And do you think the defense is better this year than last year?
Well, on paper for sure, right? So last year I look at it, we were 26th in the league against the run defensively. You're never going to be successful in the league when you're that bad against the run on defense. So when you add a guy like Ashawn Robinson, who was, I think PFF ranked him in the top tiers. He was ranked elite in run defense. So now you pair him up with Derrick
Correct.
Brown. Now you're pairing him up with Derrick Brown, who is that kind of defensive run stopper. Which you know, I'm hoping and I know that. So, but I'm hoping and expecting Derrick Brown can make a big sack jump this year. You know, maybe 7-8. If he can get 7-8 sacks this year, that would be major key. But as far as the defense, Dougie, you know, we lost Frankie Louvu, but I think we got a hidden gem in Josie Jewell, man.
Correct.
This kid's a player, bro, and he's very smart. And that's one of the first things you want as your middle linebacker. You want him to be smart. And he has camaraderie with Ejiro Evero going back to Denver, where he played his best football. You know what I mean? He had 128 tackles, I think 3.5 sacks and 2 or 3 picks that one year. And he was balling. And mind you, a highlight play where he laid out Derrick Henry. You could look it up. Like he caught him in the backfield and straight up waxed him.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. You know, Shaq's definitely a big concern coming off. You know, that's a serious injury.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. That's a serious injury if you're a 21, 22-year-old, let alone a guy who's in his late 20s at 29, 30, hitting 30 now. So
no doubt about it.
That's concerning, but that's why definitely that Trevin Wallace, his thing, though, is just disengaging off blocks. Like, he's a freak athlete, but he can get caught up in the run game. If an O lineman gets his hands on him clean, he's basically not effective in the run game, yo. But
if Trevin Wallace can play with a little bit more instinctual prowess as opposed to just being strictly a read and react type of linebacker, I think that would be where he can take his step. Because I think what Nick is talking about, and I saw it on film in my evaluation of him, is that tunnel vision is the word that was thrown around, but for me, it's more field awareness of where he is and where blockers are coming from. I think about the Georgia game specifically. There was a play where Cedric Van Pran Granger, you know, an NFL pick, the center out of Georgia, he was coming from the left side, and it was a different view of where the runner was at the time, but he should have known that he was his man, right, on that play. And he kind of lost track of that, and he got absolutely demolished when he reached on that second level. And Trevin, though, is young and he's super athletically gifted. It's just going to be about discipline and playing with instinct as opposed to thinking and overthinking every single move that he makes. Because sometimes his athleticism had him out of position. He would just go immediately without understanding what was happening, and it had him behind the 8 ball when he was trying to make tackles or shed blocks.
Yes, sir. All right, let me bring my big cousin up, a part of the family that we call over here. At What's Up, Doug? CJ from Two Fans in the Stands. What's going on, CJ?
What's up, gentlemen? How y'all doing? Hear me
What's
good?
up, CJ?
Chilling, bro. How you doing, bro?
Good.
Doing good.
So with CJ coming up, let's go ahead and talk about this. What is the strength of this defense? Is it the defensive line? Is it the linebackers? Or is it the defensive backs? Really, for me, I think, and this is going to be a tough one. I know people are going to be like, really, Doug? I'm going to go with the linebackers. When you look at the linebackers that they brought in, and one player that I'm not going to say an obvious answer, I love Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. That draft pick right there, I think he may need time, but we will understand the reason why we drafted him. And I really, I mean, even with me saying I'm a J.C. Horn fan, I think our linebacker crew is going to be phenomenal this year, even from the inside out. And I know some people say, well, do you count the outside linebackers as DNs? No, they're outside linebackers because we're in a 3-4. But I just love the acquisitions and the rookies that we're bringing into this new scheme with Evero. So my answer would be the linebackers. What you guys got to say, fellas?
I was going to say real quick, before I was going to say how impactful I think Jordan Fuller is a great signing as well. And I know it's crazy because cornerback is considered a position of need, but I'm actually going to go with defensive backfield. And why? Because we have an elite corner in JC when he's healthy. Jordan Fuller is a very good safety. I mean, he can play. He's very hybrid. He can play center field and he can come up and play plays in the line. He can play cover one robber. He can do all types of things. He can play pass coverage against tight ends. He can do all that. He's a Swiss Army knife there. And Xavier Woods, he's a great center field DB. You know, he's not the greatest tackler, but you know what I mean? Hey, he's playing free safety. If there's going to be the weakest tackler on the team, I'd rather it be my free safety. You know what I mean? As long as he's out there not letting things get over the top, where, if I'm not mistaken, he ranked 83 in PFF in coverage grade last year, which is pretty good.
All right. What you got, Ricky or CJ?
Go for it, CJ.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Doug, and say linebackers, because there is a big question mark in the secondary, and that would be J.C. Horn's health for the season. And there's also, in my opinion, a big question mark on the defensive line, and that is Shy Tuttle. And we said over on our channel that maybe we give him a little bit of grace because I think this is his first time in the 3-4 scheme. So maybe he does a little better this year. But I would have to go linebackers because, you know, Shaq Thompson moving to the off-ball linebacker, you know, I think it'll free him up. Hopefully he works on his tackling a little bit. That's what me and Shaq Thompson have a lot of beef at. You know, he throwing the shoulder into somebody, missing a tackle, and they keep on running down the field. I think Josie Jewell will be solid, you know, at that middle linebacker spot. And I think he's going to be, you know, the commander of the defense per se. But yeah, I would have to say linebackers. I have to say linebackers because we have Brian Burns here, okay, but he never really had anybody opposite of him to, you know, be his wingman to kind of help him out. The sacks didn't come from Brian Burns. You know, it was few and far between whoever was on the other side. So yeah, I'd have to say linebacker.
Okay. What you got, Ricky?
Yeah, I'll buck the trend here. I'll say the defensive line, man. And my reasoning for that is the best player on the defense plays on the defensive line, Derek Brown. I think that A'Shawn Robinson was a significant upgrade, especially for what Evero is looking to do defensively with the stopping the run. I would take A'Shawn Robinson over Deshaun Williams any day of the week, you know, 10 times out of 9 on Sundays. Shy Tuttle, yeah, man, he's an absolute question mark, and he's not my cup of tea for playing that nose tackle position. I don't think that's his natural alignment. I don't think that's where he played. That's not even where he aligned on a majority or even a small majority of the time in New Orleans. So I'm surprised that they were trying to kind of like put that square peg in a round hole here in Carolina. But I also think that there is the option of, if Crumity comes and he looks good, now he's a late round pick, so I don't anticipate him having a whole ton of impact. But they liked Nick Thurman a lot towards the tail end of last season. He now has an entire offseason within this scheme and with the strength and conditioning coaches and with his position coaches to take another step. LeBrian Ray is a guy that they also felt pretty good about, you know, a kid out of Alabama. He's got a lot of physical talent as well. So I look at it and just say that Derek Brown and A'Shawn Robinson are two very good players at a 3-player front, right? So if 66% of my players in that unit are very good and one is elite, one is probably the best at that position in the NFL, yeah, man, I feel pretty good about that, you know?
Yeah, but
All right. So, like I said, if you are new, we are an hour in. I definitely appreciate our guy Edgar jumping on. He had to jump off. Other special guest tonight was Ricky from the BoboddyShow. We got our guy CJ from Two Fans in the Stands, and we got one of our Panther fans, and I'll say he follows almost everybody, is Nick Tri-State. So I definitely appreciate Nick pulling up with us tonight to talk some Panther ball as well. So, fellas, the next thing that we're going to talk about, hold on, we got somebody pulling up. What's going on, keeping it real? Ant, how you doing this afternoon, man?
Hey, what's going on, C. Dougie?
Nothing much, man. I definitely appreciate you pulling up. What you want to talk about before we go on to the next topic?
Hey, I just wanted to talk about the Panthers. When you were talking about the position of the strength on defense, yeah, I totally agree with you. I like the linebacker position. I think the linebackers is the strength of the defense, but I do like the defensive line. There's one guy who I went to look at after the draft and when we picked up undrafted free agents, and it was Big Popo.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering at the nose, you know, do you guys think he's a guy that might have a chance to stick on the team to play that nose position? Because personally, I felt like that was sort of a weakness. I like Shy, but I just felt like Shy wasn't the guy on that first and second down to help us stop the run. So I just think we need that beef in the middle at that nose to help, to contribute against the run.
You know what wouldn't surprise me? You know what really wouldn't surprise me? If Derek Brown played nose tackle next year. One, because how versatile he is, and two, how good he is, and three, we need nose tackle in a 3-4 set. He's your anchor. He's got to be the guy who's setting the tone. You know what I mean? One, DB got the strength to play in there, and he has the agility to still break off blocks and make impacts anywhere. You want to run a wide zone either way, DB can still get there. You know what I mean? It don't matter where you put him. And it's a crazy need. I would like to see Ashawn, DB in the middle, and maybe Nick Thurman, and Crumity has some potential, man. He had 16 hurries last year in his last year in college.
I like his athleticism. You know, he plays pretty well. He's a pretty gap sound guy. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, I just feel like we're missing that, that big beef right there in that nose, just to fill out that 3-4, just to fill it out.
He was a big disappointment last year.
Exactly.
I thought it was a huge disappointment last year.
All right, real quick, we got another content creator that wants to pull up. Let me go ahead and pull him up, and I'll introduce him. I definitely appreciate. We got PPP Demetrius joining us tonight. Go ahead and tell the people what's up, D.
I just want to know why I'm never invited to the party. I always got to pull up to the party.
This was you pulled up. Hold on, Nick. I got it. This was a special invite to Ricky and Edgar. That's the reason why. And then we opened it up to the chat. If you go back and listen, it was a special invite to my guy Ricky and Edgar. Then we opened up to everybody else, my guy. And you see you on the channel, so go ahead and speak your piece.
Ricky, you should have sent me the invite. I know I don't know you, but you should have sent me. What's going on, man? Salute to everybody. How y'all doing, man?
Good. Hope you are as well.
How you doing, bro? Prime. Doing good, man. Doing good, boy. Came through that storm and that hail, made it back to Charlotte. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about some football, baby.
Well, hey, to Ant's point, if I can respond to that real quick, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, D, but to Ant's point, asking about Popo was an intriguing addition as an undrafted free agent because, in 2021, man, he was a first-team All Pac-12 player for Oregon, and then he suffered his Liz Frank injury and missed the next, season and came back for some of 2023, didn't have the same impact. But from a physical standpoint, man, he's 6'3", 315. He does occupy the double blocking that you want from a nose tackle. That is what he's good at. He also, I think, got like 3 sacks in 2021 as well. So he can add a vertical pass rush element from that zero technique. My drawback against moving Derek Brown into the nose is that you lose a lot of what he brings with his long arms and things like that if all you're doing is asking him to occupy blocks, right? Because what a team could do is they can scheme a whole lot easier of having your best defensive tackle or your best defensive lineman playing right to smack in the middle. That opens up both sides, and they're saying we could just get away from him by using an outside scheme, right, or an outside play. I still like the versatility of Derek playing on the ends, but I agree entirely that a nose tackle, when we're playing in our base formation, which we also don't do at a high clip, but if you have a nose tackle to play in your base formation, I do think that would be extremely beneficial to this defense.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so right now we're going to ask everybody. I'm going to pull it up. Hey, and I'm going to put you on mute because you got wind, but whenever you want to talk, just unmute yourself, okay?
Yes, sir.
What grade would you give Dan Morgan? I'm about to start a poll. I would like everybody to vote in the poll. We got 88 people watching. Definitely love everybody's response. But I'm going to go ahead and open up to the panel. What grade would you give Dan Morgan, meaning from the offseason, now with the draft being complete, what grade would you give him and why?
So before I give my grade for that, I'm going to do my little pay homage to Edgar Salmingo Jr. here and say, if you got 88 people watching this stream right now, I need everyone to like and subscribe to this thing, man. Like, if you're not already subscribed, just click that button. It's a real easy thing to do, and it makes a world of difference, man, as far as the algorithm and getting those looks. Doug has got a good thing going here, so let me make Edgar proud and plug that real quick because I'm awful at doing it for my own show. My grade for Dan Morgan, man, I'm going to give him a C, but not because of what he's done, but because it's all on paper right now. I like the way that he's gone about his business with intent. I like that it was a shit or get off the pot situation with Brian Burns. He made a decision there. He made it swiftly and got the most that he thought he could for it. Whether fans were 100% into it or not, doesn't matter. That saga is behind us. He recouped some draft value. He got the second round pick back in the 2025 NFL draft. I thought that was a great move in this current draft. I thought that he did fine with some of the selections. But again, that's all speculation until we see it play out on the field. I don't really want to give a grade on the players. But from a approach standpoint, I think he's doing everything adequately. I don't think he's done anything that makes me stand up and say, wow, man, I am super glad that he got this job as opposed to a guy like Joe Ortiz, who's over there as the new GM in Los Angeles, who I think they had a knockout draft, and I think they've done things really smartly there in Los Angeles. So I compare things like that just on personal preference, but I would absolutely not put like demerits on his grade because I think that he has done everything at a completely adequate level to begin with.
Real quick, Ricky, I gotta co-sign on that. I'm a huge believer. The Rams, their first 4 picks, bro, they're all hits.
Right.
Oh my goodness, they hit boom on all their first 4 picks.
And they were immediate first 4 picks, and they also weren't first rounders, right? It was a second rounder and 2/3, which is very similar to what we had a setup coming into this draft.
It was what was it? Jared Versey, Braden Fisk.
Oh, you're talking about this year. I was even talking about last year with the Rams too.
Yeah. The Rams and the Packers are the best drafting teams in the league.
It's
a
matter
about the Eagles as well.
Yeah, the Eagles are terrific because the Eagles
had a
play
great
that strategy where the Eagles let that best player fall to them, and then they don't.
And
hesitate,
the Ravens,
right?
we can't forget about
the Ravens too, right? And these are front offices that have a longevity together, right? Now, Joe Ortiz just left the Ravens and went to the Chargers, and you saw what that impact was already, right? Him with Harbaugh, they had a great alignment, I thought. But you talk about the Eagles and the Ravens and the Rams. I mean, these guys have a clear vision of what they want their football team to be able to do. A lot of that is probably the communication from the coaching staff being clear about their intention of what they're going to do on the field as well. We saw what happens when you don't have that, right? We saw last year when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, all talking about what they want to do individually and not as a team. It is a mess. That's not the case with these other teams, man. Like, they have a clear idea of what they're doing, even if it's different than the rest of the league. And that's why they show up consistently.
Can I piggyback something off Ricky just said real quick, Dougie?
Hold on. Let me invite. We got another person in the backstage real quick. Shout out to Mr. T Money pulling up and talking with us, man. Definitely appreciate you pulling up. I'm gonna let Nick jump in it, and then anybody else. And if T Money, you want to drop your grade on Dan Morgan, go ahead. But go ahead, Nick.
If you think about those teams who've been successful drafting, the Rams, the Ravens, the Packers, right? Look at us, for example, now, right? I saw something interesting I read on the other day on the internet. It said since 2022, our draft since 2022, there are 4 players that we've drafted or traded away draft picks that are going to be on this roster from 2022 on. So what does that tell you? Look what we did, right? We traded a draft pick to move up and get Matt Corral. He's not on the Panthers anymore. We traded up. We got Stephon Gilmore. We had him for a season. He's not on the team anymore. Then we traded another one of those draft picks for Laviska Shenault. He's not on the Panthers anymore. Now you look at this past draft where we clearly missed on few things, and we traded draft picks. We traded draft picks for Baker Mayfield. We traded draft picks for C.J. Henderson. Like, we were wilding, bro. we were wilding.
Doing too much.
Yeah.
So Nick, you already gave your grade?
Oh, this offseason?
Yes, sir.
In totality, I love it. So, like, they had a clear vision, right? Dan Morgan even said it because they asked him, and I caught it. He said, did you have a vision on spending money early on interior linemen and then just, kind of spreading the rest out, because let's shout out Brant Tillis, but that man is a wizard with what he did with our cap space, with what we were able to pull off with all these picks. Because if you told us in the beginning that we were going to have all this ability to sign all these players, I would have looked at you crazy. I would have been like, what? How the hell? You know what I mean? And Brant Tillis pulled it off. I mean, he filled a lot of holes. Dan Morgan filled a lot of holes. They have a clear vision. I give it a solid B.
Okay.
In totality, a solid B.
All right, Ant-Man, B is leading right now in the poll. Again, if you have not hit that poll, it's just a simple 5-second hit, A, B, C, or D. And what would you give the Panthers right now?
Oh man, I'll give them a B.
Okay.
Yeah, oh man. Am I
You still here? You still here, Ant? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'll definitely give them a B. I think Dan and Dave, I think Ricky said, Nick said, excuse me, he had a vision. They stuck with it. And not only that, if anybody know keep pounding, it's Dan Morgan. So, you know, I think that's where we're going to get back to, running the football, you know, making it easier for Bryce, play action, you know, throwing the ball down the field, you know, and letting him make some plays, man, because just last year was a disaster, man. So, but anyway,
we don't got no Steve Smith, though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, we don't have Steve Smith, though, but we have some guys that can make some plays, man.
Hey, Deontay Johnson's going to ball out, man. Panther fans are going to like this kid quick. Trust me.
I just want to say one quick thing is that when I heard about Canales being the receivers coach in Seattle, and I looked at the guys that he had, like, you know, Jermaine Kearse and Baldwin and Tate. I mean,
nah. He wasn't there for that. He was there. He was for.
Hello.
You still here?
What?
Was he
that was
there?
2014. You're right, bro. You're right.
I think he was there when they had.
Yeah, he was young. He was young with Pete Carroll. Yep, you're right.
He was a young guy though, right. But he was there with those guys, I think.
Yep, you're right.
And
you're right.
It just makes me think about, you know, guys on my roster. It makes me think about like Terrence Marshall Jr. because I don't give a damn what nobody say, man. This guy's really never had a chance. You know.
Nah, I wouldn't say that. He's been in the league 4 years. Because
the one thing I would say is, like, last year, and I'll make it quick because I know we're on another subject, is that when he had those 9 catches, I think it was week 3 or whatever it was, you're supposed to build off that. And then for your coach not to know who you're not on the field, you're not on the game day roster that day, you know, they took away some things. Terrence Marshall just had he's been having a raw deal, man. He was supposed to build off that last season that he had with Coach Wilkes.
They giving up on Terrace Marshall. Just look at the actions they've done, right? So they've drafted Jonathan Mingo. They drafted Lee Gett. They signed Adam Thielen in between. Terrace Marshall was on the team before we signed Adam Thielen. Terrace Marshall was on the team before we got Deontay Johnson.
Right. Exactly. But what I'm saying is, my thing is that I'm looking forward to him with somebody like Canales having a Terrence Marshall.
Hold on, Nick.
He might get cut, bro.
He might get cut. He might get cut. You're right. But I'm just saying, just to see what can happen. He might see something that the other coaches didn't. Who knows? I don't know. But
but fellas, let me get back to the subject at hand with Dan Morgan.
Right.
I'm gonna get PPP and I'm gonna get T Money, and then we got one more topic that I think everybody will have a say so, because I think everybody has a favorite rookie that they want to talk about. So PPP, what will be your grade? And T Money, and then I'm gonna hand it back off to Ricky to close it out, and then we'll go into our last topic of the night. So PPP, give us your grade, and then T Money, go ahead and jump on it.
Yeah. My grade may be a little bit too optimistic for most, but I give it an A. I give it an A based on these two things. Having the balls to let Brian Burns walk, which is something that the previous GM could not do. And then having the ability to go ahead and bring in people that can match his stats that he did the past 6 years. So, you know, we got the complimentary work back at a cheaper value. So I'm cool with that. Then signing or giving a DB, a contract extension. You know what I mean? Like that's something that you want to see happen in Carolina. Keeping our star players here instead of letting them go off somewhere else, i.e. Christian McCaffrey, and then run amok somewhere else. So I think that for me, just those two things right there was an eye opener. I didn't think that it was going to happen. I know that there was contract negotiations had halted during the combine, and I was like, "Oh snap! I don't know what's going to happen." Stand still. Then they finally did it. Now, when we go over to the draft, I enjoyed the draft. Of course, you guys know my feelings about that trade up from 33 to 32. I was like, we didn't really need to do that, but seeing that we got a second round pick next year out of some of those trade ups, trade backs that we did, the players that we acquired, they're decent players. I like them. Leggett, I like. Brooks, I love. That dude Wallace, he's going to hurt somebody. But and then also just to address the free agents, Coker. You know what I mean? I guess his name is Poo Poo. But just seeing these guys, man, that they brought in, Popo Poo Poo, he know his name. Just see
Popo
these
from Dragon Ball Z too.
Absolutely, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that little soliloquy you gave me. But yeah, just seeing these guys that they brought in, I love what Dan has done. It's changed the organization, in my opinion, from where it was going in a failing direction to now starting to take that leap towards what we're used to. So, if you guys were excited about the past 6 years, we should be even more excited about what we're seeing now with Dan Morgan. So, I'm going to give it an A.
All right. Team Money, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So how you feeling?
I can't be that optimistic. A is kind of a little too much for me. I'm gonna go B minus. As far as what Nick said, I think too often I felt like this front office was moving like how the fans move. Like we would start every offseason saying it's a rebuild, and then as you get closer and closer to the season, the front office will start thinking, well, hey, maybe we can win the division this year. And then so you don't continue to rebuild, you start making moves like you're actually going to win games and you're actually going to make the playoffs, and it just never worked out. Other than that, as far as the offseason, I feel like the biggest thing is that they gave Bryce a chance to have weapons comparable. I mean, besides the Texans, because the Texans just went OD, but comparable to everybody else in his draft class, finally. Far as weapons, far as O-line, and I think that was the biggest thing. Defensively, still have a lot of concerns. Our defense last year was bad in key moments, and I feel like talent-wise, we're not as good. And
I disagree.
With it slowing down as far as the Stephon Gilmore right now, even though I know he doesn't need minicamp and he might not need training camp, but to me, that secondary is a big concern right now. You're trusting on JC to make it through a whole year, and then behind him, I mean, you're going Dane Jackson, you're going Troy Hill. Like I'm not real confident in that secondary. Unless you're telling me for sure Gilmore just saying, hey, I don't want to be there right now. I'll come later on in the offseason. But defensively, yeah, I know they whole thing as well. The defensive coordinator, he can make the talent better, but it's like, can he? Was he really last year?
Yeah. So I'm gonna end the poll, and in the poll, we had 62% choose B. I would give it a solid B. I really think with what Dan Morgan had to work with the tough decisions that he had to make, I think a lot of people did not expect him to come in at the bat and swing it out the park, regardless of the pieces on paper. The moves that we made, nobody can tell me when Dan Morgan came in, everybody thought he was Scott Fitter 2.0. Then he showed that on day one, we can be very aggressive in a draft and a need that we needed to address an offensive line with two great guards. Then you go and make a trade basically for nothing, a player that you already said you're going to cut in Dante Jackson and go get Deontay Johnson. And he is a separation guy. However, you may look at it, yes, he drops the ball. All wide receivers drop the ball. For him to flip that trade and get what he was able to get, that's another bonus. Then for him to trade Brian Burns, and whatever you got from Brian Burns, you were going to get pennies. For him to get a second-round pick, and it was basically in the top tier of the second round, meaning basically it just depends on your pickings. Yeah, we did what we did in the draft, but for me, I give it a solid B. I love it. The optimism reason why I want to give it an A is because I think that's way too high. But I think a B- or a straight B is a perfect grade for him coming out the gate in his first year being a GM for the Carolina Panthers. And I'm really ready to see these rookies coming up here. And like I said, we're about to end the show talking about the rookies, man. So again, if you are new to the channel, definitely hit that like button for us. Definitely subscribe to the channel. We love the comments over here. What's up, Doug? As you can see, we pull up everybody's comments unless you're engaging with somebody in the chat. If you'd like to send a super sticker, you can do that as well, man. But let's go ahead and pull up.
Can I ask a quick question real quick?
Go ahead, T-Money.
Besides Xavier Legette, are we a little like unsure of who's going to be a day one contributor out of this draft class?
Well, I think John.
Well, hold on, Nick. We're gonna get into that, T-Money. Let me go ahead and pull up the slide, and then we can get right into it. I'm gonna let Ricky go first, and then whoever wants to jump off on it. Rookie minicamp stories. We know minicamp starts this Friday. We have our top 4 draft picks up. I just did a little fun, a little tidbit of what the clippings can say and what people can say. I'll read it out for those that don't have good eyes. So the first one is Xavier Legette shows off his explosiveness and quickness throughout rookie minicamp. Number 2, Jonathan Brooks is on track for training camp and looking to compete with veterans for the RB1. Number 3 is Trevin Wallace shows a lot of grit throughout the weekend and the next best drafted linebacker in Panthers history. And number 4 is Jadavion Sanders will be able to stretch the field in this new offense under Dave Canales and lives up to his nickname. So for me, that was just a little bit of fun, making a couple of storylines that I think we will hear coming out this weekend with rookie minicamp, with our rookies being in the building, being on the practice field. Ricky, tell me what you feel about our rookies reporting this Friday, and then we'll go ahead and put send it around the platform.
Oh, I think that's a fun, creative thing that you did there. First of all, I like that, Doug. Good for you. But as far as like my anticipation of what we'll see from the rookies and impact that T-Money is talking about, Jonathan Brooks is difficult to project because obviously the recovery from the injury, but then their long-term approach versus what he shows in minicamp as far as where he is right away. I think that all of that is just still so to be determined, right? So it's really hard for me to put any kind of expectations on Brooks. I will say this about Jonathan Brooks. He is my favorite rookie of this draft class based off of, well, first, my personal grade. He was number 39 overall for me in my top 150 that I graded and charted out. And so getting him at 46 for me, I had no issues with. I thought that was a completely fair value. I think that when you look at I think it was 14 out of the last 20 rushing champions in the NFL were drafted in the top 50. So if you're looking for a premier player, somebody that can actually lead the league as a position in what they're supposed to be doing, that's where you get that, man. And like, there's always outliers for finding that in different rounds. But even those other 6 players were drafted in the top 100. So you're going to have to use capital on premier players 90% of the time, right? Every now and then you might fall ass backwards into a Puka Nacua in the 5th round. But usually you're looking at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round players making the big impacts on football teams. So Jonathan Brooks, I think that once he's healthy and they're ready to give him as much as he can handle, I anticipate him being a true 3-down back. He's terrific in pass protection. He has really good hands. I'm not necessarily going to call him like a premier route running back like Christian McCaffrey or anything like that. But the vision and the patience and the contact balance with the ball in his hands is absolutely reminiscent of the elite type of running backs that succeed really well in the NFL. I was on the C3 podcast last night with the guys, and I brought up a name that is a super lofty name, and people will probably have a reaction to it. But as a very poor man's version of Edgar James, it's that game that Jonathan Brooks brings without the 4.39 home run speed. but he is going to make people miss. He's going to be mindful before he starts running with the football. And that's what will remind people of the Arian Foster, of the Le'Veon Bell, of the Aaron Jones.
I like that original Edger, poor man's Edger.
Yeah, he's a poor man, Edgerrin James. Man, he doesn't have
like
all
That's
of the
actually a good one.
dynamicism that Edgerrin James had, because Edgerrin James was an absolute monster coming out.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Brooks, his was cut short with his injury, but he was on pace to top some of Bijan Robinson's statistics, right? And statistics don't tell the whole story, but you can see Jonathan Brooks' impact on the field when he plays. Xavier Legette, though, I do want to touch on him real quickly before I pass up, if I can.
Hold on real quick, Ricky.
Yeah,
Let me
go
read
for
these super chats real quick. I'm passing right off. Shout out to Red Swarm. He said, love the show, C-Doug. I appreciate that right there. Then we have another one, Eternal 252 said, let me hear you say Ovo ho.
OV-ho. That's that Drake diss.
And then shout out to our guy PPP.
Kung Fu Kenny.
Did a super chat. Great show. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, just to wrap up here, because I don't want to completely just stand on a soapbox here, but Xavier Legette, I honestly, man, like Xavier Legette was my 9th ranked wide receiver. I have no problem with him being taken, be trading up and taking him in the first round at pick 32 either, though. This draft class was so talent deep at the wide receiver position that being wide receiver 9 in this draft really isn't a negative connotation, man. And a lot of people thought that was the case just because I was higher on a couple of different guys. I wasn't as high on A.D. Mitchell as a lot of people were. That's the fun part about evaluating prospects, man, is that you have your own grading system. You have your own criteria and process that you go through, and you use that same process when you're doing this for every single player, right? That's all I did, and I used the grades to rank my guys. Xavier Legette.
Real quick, can I play devil's advocate with the running back with Jonathan?
Ricky, where you doing? Hold on real quick. Ricky, where you done?
Oh, no, I was just going to say Xavier Legette offers a skill set to this offense that we did not have on the roster. The comparison to Jonathan Mingo for me doesn't hit outside of maybe the physical measurements on some of their things. The way they play the game, the nuance that they have in their route running, and Xavier Legette still has plenty of refinement that he can do. But you look at his ability to sell routes, not just run them. He's got the nuance that it takes to succeed in the NFL, and I think that he can hone that in because he's a very hard worker by all accounts.
Okay. Go ahead, T-Money.
I was gonna say, as far as your Russian champions and that list, I was gonna play the Christian McCaffrey devil's advocate from when we had him, which is how many of those Russian champions got Super Bowls though?
Yeah, no, that's fair. But then look at the supporting cast, because then look at what Christian McCaffrey did when he went to San Francisco, right? I mean, he went to San Francisco, and Christian McCaffrey was exactly what Christian McCaffrey was here in Carolina, but the rest of his team was good, and he got to a Super Bowl. And he led them to the NFC Championship the year prior until they had to have, wide receiver 4 throwing passes for him in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, no, he actually was toward the
right.
end of the game. He was
so like I do understand what you're saying though, T-Money, and you're talking about like value of a running back into production on wins, like team record type of deal. But I think that when you're talking about this specific situation for the Carolina Panthers, you're talking about giving Bryce Young the best situations to succeed. And if you can't do that by bringing in a guy like a Brandon Ayuk or a T. Higgins and giving this instant impact to the wide receiver group, and Deontay Johnson is going to provide some of that, but he's not an elite player necessarily. He has the ability to put up really good production, in my opinion, but elite players aren't on one-year prove-it deals, right? Like Justin Jefferson is never going to be on hey, he's in his last year deal. Why don't we just take a chance to see if he's good? No, everyone knows what he is, right? And that's why you trade what you do for a guy like a Justin Jefferson if he were available, or a Tyreek Hill, what he commanded, and Stephon Diggs back when he was traded. Like those guys are true known commodities. Deontay Johnson has put up good production with very mediocre, if not bad, quarterbacks in his career that I think that you look at him and you say he can benefit Bryce Young, he can benefit this offense, but we're still looking for that elite premier weapon on the outside. What a running back can do is he can take that pressure off of having to find that right away. And you can take the pressure off of Bryce Young from having to amplify everybody on the offense. All he has to do is do what Canales is asking him, play that 1 of 11, play within yourself, and be that supporting quarterback as opposed to the guy that drives every single thing on his own.
Yes, sir. All right, so I'm going to get PPP. Give me a storyline that you're looking forward to coming out of training camp. And Nick, I'm going to have you give me one. And then we're going to read a couple more chat messages, and we're going to get out of here. So, PPP, what's the storyline that you're looking forward to coming out of rookie minicamp this weekend?
Yeah, I would say it have to be Leggett, performing well, executing his routes that many people believe he can't run, and just being that tall, big body wide receiver that we drafted him to be. So I'm excited about Leggett. I think he's going to be he is the missing factor for Bryce Young. I didn't have someone that played at his size last year. I was hoping it would have been a DJ Chark, but with Leggett's big body, I'm excited about the 50-50 balls that will more than likely come down in his hands this year. So yeah, that's something that I'm really excited about for this season.
Okay.
And what was your other question? Was it?
Oh no, that was it. That was it.
Okay.
I mean, if you had two, you got two storylines.
No. Well. I just hope all the rookies do good. I really, I hope all of them do good. For me, Dougie, the linebacker position was something of importance for me, and I really like Wallace. I'm not gonna lie. I hope he evolves to being, that Thomas Davis / Luke Kuechly, get in there, not the ball carrier, going out getting picks. The one thing that I did see in this eval is he has a hard time when he's not blitzing. Like if he's going back into like coverage or whatever, or he gets kind of lost in the sauce. So I hope that this process will help him get his feet and his eyes, kind of secured, and knowing where the ball is going at, so that over the top stuff, won't get him. But when he's going in for the blitz, he has great closing speed. I mean,
he has bad intentions. That's
yeah.
All right, Nick, what you got, my guy? What's the storyline that you got?
I got a few. So
well, make it short because you
I'm gonna kind of skim through it real quick. So real quick on the Leggett thing. So I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't even think we had to trade up to get him at 33. He probably still would have been there. But I wasn't the biggest fan in the beginning. But after thinking about it a little, you think about Canales, and then you also think about Brad Idzik, who is our offensive coordinator, who was with Dave Canales in Seattle. So I feel like they're going to implement a lot of things that they did with DK when he was young. Because the problem with Leggett is this. His problem, he's big, he's fast, all this. He's good at contested catches. His problem is getting off the line, his release. And
Nick,
big physical.
Hold on, real quick. I said, give me a storyline. You break it down as Xavier Leggett. I said, give me a storyline.
Yeah. Well, my biggest storyline, Jatavian Sanders. No one said him yet. I think he could be the steal of the draft. I think he's going to be a starter. He might become a starter early. I think he's super talented. Last 2 years in the nation, he's second in tight ends in the whole nation in D1. So he's a problem, and I think he's definitely going to shine. And I think he might end up being a starter relatively quick.
Okay. T-Money, did you give your storyline? I don't want to skip nobody. Did you give a storyline?
No, I didn't.
Go ahead. My bad. I just want to make sure.
Mine would be Jatavion, seeing hopefully him proving sooner than later that he can be the number one tight end, if not the number two. I know people are a little unsure about his blocking, which will probably be the hold up. But it's been a very long time since we had a great pass catcher at tight end. I mean, Greg Olsen left and went to another team, retired, started another career, became one of the best at that career, and we still ain't found a tight end.
That's correct.
And Sean Smith Wade would be my other one. Just seeing his transition of learning nickel, because like he said, he never played nickel before the Senior Bowl. So seeing how quickly he can learn that I want to see that.
Okay. All right, so that is the state of the roster here on What's Up, Doug. I definitely appreciate everybody that has joined us tonight. Special shout out to two people, Edgar and my guy Ricky from the BoboddyShow. I appreciate you two fellas pulling up. I appreciate Nick holding it down. I appreciate PPP pulling up. PPP, Demetrius. I appreciate two fans in the stands, CJ pulling up, and I appreciate T Money pulling up. And I forgot. I just went blank. I got that pulled up. I totally went blank on his name. Anybody remember his name that pulled up? And I definitely appreciate Ant pulling up. Again, it has been a great show. I'm gonna definitely let Ricky and PPP shout out their channels. and let the people know what to look forward to, along with T Money as well. So let T Money go first, then PPP, and then Ricky, you close us out. Go ahead.
My Panther channel is my name on here, Mr. T Money 1993. I know I've been around for a minute, been making videos since 2013. So hopefully everybody will go to check it out. If you haven't checked out my draft class highlight videos video, it's a long of a watch. It's like 27 minutes, but it has been doing pretty good on the channel. And then I think tonight I'm probably gonna put out my reaction. I'm probably gonna sit down and watch the Steve Smith and PNP collab and probably react to that.
Okay. PPP, what you got for the people, man?
Yeah, man. Shout out to you, Dougie, man. Great show tonight, man. Hey guys, my name is Demetrius with the Panthers Prime Podcast, PPP. You can find me on YouTube at PanthersPrimePodcast.com as well. Panthers Prime Podcast. The website hasn't come out yet. I've been working on the website all day. That's why I said .com, Dougie. But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Same handle, Panthers Prime Podcast. Appreciate you guys. If you do come by, just say that you did come by from What's Up Doug's page, and
yes, sir.
I'll throw you a little thumbs up. Yeah.
All right, what you got for us, Ricky?
Yeah, Doug, really good job here tonight, man. I appreciate having me on. It's nice to chop it up with everybody that came on. It's a fun thing to have the panel and have everyone be able to come in and give their inputs on it as well. So it's a cool show you got going here, man. I enjoyed the slides. I just enjoyed being a part of it. If you are interested in hearing more of what I have to say, I host the BoboddyShow. It's available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of the places where you get your podcasts. I also do some contributing for Cat Crave, the Carolina Panthers blog. And if you just kind of want to see my rambling thoughts and my gripes on Twitter, my Twitter handle is right there above my head at Ricky Bobody. So you can check that out right there. Yeah, man, really good show. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's input. Make sure you like and subscribe to Doug's channel here. The more he gets for likes and subscriptions, the more comments, the more interaction, the more he can get things like this going for everybody, man. And I'd love to be a part of another one in the future.
Yes, sir. You already know you're welcome, man. Our guy CJ from Two Fans in the Stands is not here, but they're definitely going live here in less than 50 minutes. So they will be talking about cap issues. They're going to talk about a salary cap tonight. So again, if you are wanting some more content, you want to grab a bite to eat and definitely lay down tonight before you go to bed and hear some more Panther talk, head over to Two Fans in the Stands. They have a great live for you guys tonight. For me, I appreciate everybody that has pulled up again. Great content creators that have pulled up. PPP, Ricky, Edgar, T Money, and Two Fans in the Stands. It has been a great night. As they have said, if you are not subscribed to What's Up, Doug, we'll definitely love for you to subscribe over here. If you enjoy the content, leave a comment for us, share the live for us. I want to get this out because I know it should be Mother's Day every day. But if my mother is listening, let me go ahead and pause this real quick. Happy early Mother's Day. I know for moms, sisters, whoever, Mother's Day is on Sunday. Just want to go ahead and get that out and say happy Mother's Day to all the mothers around. Mothers are Panther Nation. You know, we especially appreciate you guys. But for me, just a quick update. We'll have one more live. I will be on military leave for the month of June. So there will be no content on What's Up, Doug. But you have plenty of great minds out here that you guys can go and follow. I will be back in July, but we have one more live before we go on military leave. But again, I appreciate all the Panther content creators that have come shown love to What's Up, Doug. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. We got more and more in store in the bank. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. It's going to get hotter and hotter. But again, we appreciate everybody that pulled up tonight. As we always say over here, keep pounding, stay safe. One love. We out.